day, my friends. Welcome to the dojo. Today we're going to teach you how to dominate with the Typhoon Blade, both in movement and combat, and we're going to teach you how to counter the Typhoon Blade in Fortnite Chapter 6. The Typhoon Blade is hands down the best combat movement item Fortnite has ever added to the game, and I'll show you exactly why. After watching this video and practicing these techniques, you'll be nearly an unhittable assassin in combat. This video is sponsored by Epic Games, creator of Fortnite and the Unreal Engine. Huge thank you to Epic Games for creating such an amazing Fortnite season and giving us such incredible movement abilities. Seriously, let's just take a second and appreciate this beauty. Alright, now let's dive into the guide. For funsies, I'm going to start with some quick, lesser known tricks with the Typhoon Blade to kick things off. Number 1, you can completely negate fall damage or deaths by using your sword slam attack by pressing your primary attack button anytime you're in the air. But do not use the heavy charge attack to try to negate fall damage. It does not work. Number 2, you can get 2 extra double dashes out of the Typhoon Blade by landing into rolls from your final dashes of your stamina bar. More on that later. Number 3, the Typhoon Blade charge attack does 250 damage to structures, which allows you to break through most roofs in a single swing and through wooden builds. You can shoot a piece of cover to see how much health is left. If you get it below 250 HP, you can charge attack through it and actually hit enemies on the other side, or just break into their box or structure to surprise them. This is also great for breaking chug barrels quickly since they have 250 HP. The flurry attack also does 50 damage per hit to structures as well, so you can break a slurp truck with a heavy attack followed by a quick flurry combo. Number 4, you can also use the charge attack to throw people off cliffs and eliminate them to fall damage, or knock your enemy away to create space. And let's be honest, there are few things in this world that bring as much joy to a gamer's heart than causing their opponent to helplessly plummet to a fatal drop. Now, the charge attack hits from 14 meters away for 90 damage to players and has a lot of utility. It can also be great to use in a car fight to knock a car at your opponent, or to hit someone through a car for 90 damage and you have line of sight on them. Number 5, the best way to find where swords spawn is using Fortnite.gg and turning off all filters except the Typhoon Blade filter. For example, Whiffy Wharfs has an area that has 4 Typhoon Blade spawns in one location. Each Typhoon Blade spawn has about a 50% chance of spawning, so the more locations you know in an area, the better. You can also turn on the filter for elemental chests and demon Oni mini bosses for another chance of getting a blade or a seasonal item from them. Alright, the way I'm going to structure the rest of this guide is by covering general movement tips first, then advanced movement tips, and finally melee attacks with the blade using advanced movement as well. I've made a zero build mastery map that has a practice area that is perfect for training with your Typhoon Blade against bots. The map code is above on screen now. Once you're in the map, you'll need to visit Aim Island, grab a Typhoon Blade and some weapons, then go to the combat movement against bots area. I encourage you to follow along with this video while playing on the map and practice each technique. Now let's cover the essentials that you need to understand about the Typhoon Blade, and then we'll continue to go more and more advanced with the combat techniques. We're going to start with some nerdy stats so that you know how to use the blade most efficiently for movement. The Typhoon Blade is a magnificent mobility and melee item that has its charges attached to your stamina bar. When sprinting with the Typhoon Blade, you run 25% faster. Normal sprint speed is 7.5 meters per second, and the Typhoon Blade sprinting is 10 meters per second. On top of that, you have 4 times the length of sprint distance when holding out the blade. So you should pretty much always have your blade out when sprinting because there's no downside apart from damaging the blade over time. The blade gets damaged by nearly 1% each second that you sprint. With a full stamina bar, you can sprint for 13 seconds with the blade out and you'll do 10% damage to the blade. Once the blade has used 100% of its health, it will break and be removed from your inventory. If you just sprint with the blade out, you'll cover 150 meters with a single stamina stamina bar and travel at 10 meters per second. But you can actually double that distance if you do a sprint slide combo, which covers 305 meters at 9.5 meters per second and damages the blade just the same for 10%. Just simply enter a sprint with the blade, run for a moment to get up to speed, then enter a slide and let that slide play out for about 2 full seconds. Then enter a sprint again and repeat the same combo until you run out of stamina. This is by far the most efficient way to move with a blade, but keep in mind it is not the safest. If you're out in the open with possible enemies looking at you, I recommend the double dash movement, especially since all weapons this season are hit scan and it's easy to be hit from very far distances if you're moving in a predictable manner. The double dash move is done by entering a sprint with the blade out and then jumping while holding forward. Once you're in the air, simply press jump again and you'll dash in the direction you're moving your character. You can repeat this over and over again, preferably landing into a slide after each double dash to save stamina and to get you further. Pro tip, if you land into a roll on your last dash, you'll regenerate a small amount of stamina to do one more double dash. If you then double dash again and land into a roll a second time, you'll be able to get one more quick double dash out of it. All you have to do to land into a roll is tap your jump button as you're approaching your landing. This is really nice when you're out in the open and running out of stamina and you just need a couple more dashes to get to cover. It's definitely one of the best uses of the new roll mechanic. Now, the normal double dash technique with landing into slides will get you to 100 meters and let you move at 10 meters per second. If you tag on the 2 extra double dashes that you get from rolling, you can now reach 150 meters. But that is still less than half the distance of just sprint sliding over and over again, and the speed is pretty much the same. Alright, cool. So the Typhoon Blade is pretty good for moving across the map quickly, but I do recommend using a Void Oni mask or vehicles in most cases because you're going to want your blade to not be damaged for use in combat, and you want to save your stamina for fights. I'd also recommend always carrying 2 forms of mobility like shockwaves or the Void Mask in addition to your blade, because a blade is not good for exiting danger quickly and fully resetting a fight. Alright, now let's get into combat movement. The first thing you need to master is camera breaking your enemies. When I say camera break, I mean you go straight over their head and force them to look straight up and then spin around to find you. People can't bend over backwards in video games when aiming, and their aim locks out at 90 degrees. So this is an easy way to get free damage by going over their head and landing behind them and forcing them to find you again. There are 2 basic ways to camera break an enemy with the Typhoon Blade. The first way is to do a quick single dash into the air and go straight above them, preferably over their head, and aim to land critical headshot damage as you're above them. Now, the most essential part of this camera break trick is doing it in close range and trying to get above or behind your enemy. If you do the vertical dash from too far away, the angle won't be severe enough for them to lose you, and you'll be an easy target hanging in the air. So this is how to practice the vertical dash camera break. First, pull out your Typhoon Blade during close range combat within about 10 meters of your enemy. 2. Immediately hit your sprint button. 3. Immediately after pressing your sprint button, press your jump button and fly above them or over their head. 4. If you go over them, flip your camera around 180 degrees while pulling out your shotgun to take a shot at them while you're in the air. 5. Put out as much damage as possible while they try to locate you. Now, once you land, you can repeat that process again or take the open field fight with weapons or your blade attacks. You should now have a significant health advantage in the fight because your enemy shouldn't have been able to track you well. Another tip is that you can actually control your second dash in the air to go in any direction that you want. So you can actually jump over somebody's head with a vertical dash and then dash backwards to where you came from to be extra confusing for them. Alright, the next way to break someone's camera is with the rapid double dash move. This is basically the same move, but instead of going really vertical, we're going to go horizontally over their head or past them and get free damage while they look for us. This is the sequence of actions you need to take. First, equip your Typhoon Blade within about 10 meters of your enemy. Second, immediately hit your sprint button. Third, immediately after hitting your sprint button, rapidly press your jump button twice in a row to fly over them quickly. 4. Quickly flip your camera around while pulling out your long-range weapon. 5. Put out as much damage as possible with your gun while they look for where you went. Now, it's actually preferable to land into a slide after this one because you'll be able to get a good amount of space from your opponent while they have no idea where you are, and they'll have their shotgun out expecting a close-range fight. But since you've created a lot of space with the slide momentum, you'll be able to gun them down from medium range while they fumble around with a shotgun and hit you with less than 20 damage per shot. You can also do this double dash move into a heavy charge attack to hit your enemy for 90 damage and really discombobulate them by throwing them backwards after you break their camera. One really key component of the double dash is getting the timing right of your second dash. Sometimes you want to go a little bit higher and get above their head, sometimes you want to move as quick as possible. Play with how quickly you input the second jump to control your height and the speed of movement. An instant double dash will quickly slingshot you past them, but they'll probably see where you went. Alright, another bonus and very advanced move is the vertical dash shot juke. This one's pretty technical because you're doing multiple swaps between your blade and your shotgun as you are in the air. Basically, you're going to dash vertically, swap to your shotgun and take a quick shot, then while still in the air, pull out your blade again and hit jump once more to dash again in any direction, and then pull out your shotgun again and shoot one more time, all before touching the ground. Once you practice this enough and build the muscle memory, it actually becomes fairly easy to do, and it's highly effective in completely juking out enemies because they don't expect another dash after your first shotgun shot. Be patient with yourself, this one took me a while to learn as well. I highly encourage you to practice these moves in the Shinobi Zero Build Mastery map code above on screen. You're going to want to go to Aim Island and then go to the combat movement scenario to build up that muscle memory and make it automatic in fights. Alright, the next part of combat with the Typhoon Blade is using your dashes to quickly reposition to a place of advantage. Realistically speaking, the best type of combat movement is that which allows you to take the least amount of damage, reduce your overall risk, and output the most damage possible. And that usually means you are using cover effectively and your enemy is not. Anyone who is dashing around out in the open and constantly going for jukes and camera breaks without ever using cover is going to have a very low win rate in Fortnite because they take too much risk and damage during fights. They'll either miss a couple shots and lose the fight, or they'll take too much damage and get eliminated by a third party. We have never had a movement item that can get us into a new position of advantage so quickly with such good accuracy. Therefore, if you want to win more fights in games, you should be making quick, smart moves into cover to gain an advantage and reduce risk from third parties. The first step in doing this is analyzing your environment for advantageous positions as soon as possible. Create a quick plan for how you'll use the environment against your enemy and try to set traps if possible. For instance, a quick double dash past them and sliding into a bush can nearly be a free win. You get concealment, they're confused for a second, and if you act quickly enough, you can deal massive damage before they have time to react. Or perhaps you're on a large sloping hill and the only cover around you is a single tree. If your enemy pushes you, your first thought better be to get to the tree and use the open space against them. That will turn a hard fight into an easy one. As long as you know how to use the right shoulder peek and use cover effectively, you will win. If you want to master your positioning and use of cover, I highly recommend watching my Use Cover Like a Pro video. So basically, you should almost always prioritize using cover during combat, and the Typhoon Blade makes that extremely easy to do by quickly repositioning. Real Fortnite pros don't just run around and try to out-juke everyone. No, instead, if you watch them, they're constantly taking quick advantages and forcing their enemy into disadvantages. So you've got to analyze your surroundings and quickly think about how to position yourself with the Typhoon Blade to get an advantage. High ground is always an obvious choice, and the vertical dash makes that very easy. Right shoulder peeks from behind trees or structures are always great, and the double dash movement makes that easy to accomplish. Now, one of the biggest keys to doing this is to ensure that you have an actual advantage on your enemy. You need to pull them into your trap by making them chase you or empty their magazine while trying to hit you during your movement. Then, quickly get behind the cover and take safe shots where you conceal 80% of your body from them and they have no cover at all. One of the most essential things to this is recognizing when you have enough distance from your enemy to use the cover and when you don't. Because in all honesty, most players want to take the close range fight, especially by using the Typhoon Blade melee attacks. So you need to think a step ahead and make sure that whatever position you're about to move to is far enough away or high enough that your enemy can't just reach you in a single dash themselves. Once you've got some space from them and you're behind cover, you need to punish them as quick as possible. And that truly is the bread and butter of countering the Typhoon Blade attacks. Medium range combat. So generally speaking, you need to have a Typhoon Blade yourself or a way to get range from them quickly. Because in all honesty, once someone's within a few meters from you with a Typhoon Blade, you can consider yourself deceased. The good news is that most people just spam the flurry attack at you, and if you double dash away or break their camera and get some distance, they'll be swinging their sword at the air and stuck in an animation while you pelt them with easy shots from a distance. I do not recommend ever taking a sword duel because the odds of you winning that fight are about 50% at best. If you do use your blade to fight another sword, which I understand is tempting, you should be utilizing the slam attack frequently to avoid the flurry attacks that they'll use, which we'll get to next. Really quick, if you're enjoying this content, please consider smashing that like button, body slamming the subscribe button, and gently clicking the notification bell to be alerted every time I go live or drop a new video. Thank you so much, my friend. Oh, and if you consider using code Toby1Shinobi in your Fortnite item shop, it helps me and my family more than you'll ever know. Thank you so much. Back to discussing how to dominate with the Typhoon Blade. Not only does the blade do excellent damage, but you're very difficult to hit while doing the crazy melee animations. You can dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge while smacking your opponent around helplessly while they try to shotgun you and miss every shot. It's actually the bane of my existence right now, and I've decided that I will no longer get within 15 meters of anyone with a sword unless I have a major health advantage. So let me educate more players on how to send me back to the lobby. There are 3 main attacks with the Typhoon Blade that you should utilize frequently. The first is the primary attack, which does a flurry of sword attacks that lock onto your enemy and hit for a total of 200 damage. The first 5 hits do 30 damage for 150, and the last does 50 for a total of 200. That kind of sounds bad on paper, but the slashes are very quick and you're extremely hard to hit while doing it. Now, in zero build, full health players have 250 HP, so we need to add in one more heavy attack to fully eliminate them in one clean combo. That is where the slam attack comes in. The slam attack allows you to jump into the air, press your primary attack, and slam down on your enemy for 70 damage. Then you can quickly move into your primary attack combo for the remaining 180 HP, and just like that, your enemy is back in the lobby. Honestly, this combo doesn't really need much of an explanation because it's pretty straightforward. Just open with the slam attack and then hold down your fire button to finish them off with the flurry of blades. It's extremely effective, and it's also the reason I encourage you to stay away from anyone with a sword this season. I also highly recommend using the slam attack to push enemies when you're high above them, as it gets you moving very quickly towards the ground and it forces them to move in most cases. If you just double dash at them, you're more floaty and it's easier to beam you out of the air. Also remember that the slam attack is the best way to negate fall damage if you're falling from height. If you find yourself in close combat with a Typhoon Blade user and you're going to duel them with the blade as well, you should utilize the slam attack by dashing into the air and slamming down on them repeatedly to avoid their flurry attacks. Once you've dealt about 140 damage, I highly recommend you dash out to get distance and then finish them off with a ranged weapon. That way you ensure you don't take too much damage in the melee fight. I will note that there was a really overpowered movement tech with the sword slam that basically gave you infinite movement with no stamina use or damage to the blade, but it was recently patched out of the game. Same with dashing into objects to bounce really far. If you see those tricks in videos, they are no longer possible to do in game. Now let's talk about the heavy charge attack with the Typhoon Blade and how to combine it with movement to make it really good. When holding the sword out and pressing your alternate fire button, you do a wide, sweeping, charged heavy attack that hits for 90 damage and knocks your enemies away from you. This attack hits from a whopping 14 meters away and has a huge impact width. It's excellent for pushing your enemy away and finishing them off with a long-range weapon when they're confused holding their shotgun or sword out still. This is also one of the best counters to people who are spamming you with their light sword attacks. Just click your right trigger as they approach with their sword out and aim towards them to send them flying away. The only downside to this attack is that it has about a 1 second charge up before the attack actually happens. And that's about enough time to get seriously hurt because the animation is very static and easy to hit. But you can combine this with a double dash slide to make you harder to hit. First, you need about 20 meters from your enemy and then double dash at a slight angle to their side and then land into a slide. As soon as you start sliding toward your enemy, hit your charge attack and aim toward them. You are now skating by them at a fast pace while winding up your charge attack. Once the attack hits them and knocks them back, pull out your AR or SMG for an easy cleanup. They literally won't know what hit them and they probably won't be ready for a long-range gunfight. Keep in mind that the charge attack uses 5% of your Typhoon Blade's health, so it's not something you want to spam all the time. This charge attack is also great for breaking structures to surprise enemies. You can even hit someone on the other side of the structure if you're aimed right at them. And if an enemy is in a car and you have line of sight on them, you can even hit them for 90 damage through the car or send the car flying. I sometimes like to use this attack in car fights to hit the player with the car itself and send them flying into the air. If you found this information helpful or interesting, please smash that like button and consider using code TobyOneShinobi in your Fortnite item shop. It helps me and my family more than you'll ever know. And if you want to improve your Fortnite combat skills even more, check out this next video. I promise you won't regret it. Have yourself a wonderful day. Shinobi out.